Recording, yeah. What's up, GTO basers?
Hello, guys.
I'm here, CuAt69UsdSng, CEO and main coach of SmartSpin. I'm here with JackOverNine, our high stakes 250, 500 poker star spin and go player, also a coach, and we'll take a closer look at the GTOBase. Basically, we'll show you how we work with the program. We are fairly new with it, so this will basically be experimenting, but we have some experience with other programs like PiaSolver, like InstaGTO,
Simple
like
poker.
Yeah, like the old good GTO database made by Skyer. So we've got some let's say rules to do it. So today's topic would be pretty catchy. We want to investigate river bluffs. We want to investigate river bluffs, and we'll take mainly raises and 3-bets for bluff. So here I picked like a pretty interesting hand where we are linked pot from big blind. In that case, I decided to skip the c-bet, like not going into details why, but what's more interesting is river, where I decided to delay probe and I got raised. And basically, during the live play, one of my students asked me about, hey, maybe we could rebluff this hand because we are blocking here deuce 3, we are blocking 3-7, we are blocking 7-8, we're blocking these straights. Why can't maybe we could bluff this combo? And basically, I just uploaded this hand into our Insta hand. And we want to investigate, like, hey, what's going on these rivers, with what hands
it would basically make sense to do such a move, right? Because is there even a high enough frequency and place for a hand like 8-3? Should we be doing such a rebluff only with hand like pair plus draw? How does our opponent's river range look like on average? And basically, if we receive a call, what combinations are too light, for example, so that we know that we shouldn't continue bluffing this guy in the future? So basically, how on average GTO-wise river ranges in such a spot would look like, so that we know if we can deviate against certain opponent.
Yeah, so when it comes to this hand, as you can see, taking a look at this, like playing GTO strategy versus this GTO strategy, this hand shouldn't be checked at all. It's mainly probing half pot or pot size. And then on the river, probably because of the fact that we block these straights, as played when we river probe, this is mainly just jamming. I mean, probably that's the reason, I believe. However, if we check the turn, I'm not sure how many straights we have in the checking range, but we'll investigate it. This is also important when we check the river, to see also what are the bluffing combos, what are the value combos, and basically be sure that we have both of them on the river.
I think this is due to the fact that also the stack sizes that you start the hand with are kind of shallow. So therefore, one of the best high cards that we have for checking down is Queen X. Therefore, we have way more queens than kings in our range. So this queen perceivably hits us a lot. Therefore, we can have enough top pairs to protect river probe jam. But it's just a guess for now, so we can check it out. Is it really the case?
Yeah, let's see. So it went check. As you can see, we've got lots of bets, like almost 50% of the betting range. Worth taking a closer look when it comes to the sizings. So the dark blue is the overbet, right? The violet is pot size bet. So it's worth looking for the overbet combos. So we've got some 2 pairs, right? We could actually check it here, like one by one, to basically like see what's, like, first of all, what's our betting range. So for sure we have, let me turn it off. We have some straights, right, that we overbet: 7-3, 8-7. Yeah, deuce 3. It's worth Also taking a look at the EV of such a bet, and the EV is described in blinds, right? Overbet goes for 364, while other sizings, even a check, gets like way. I mean, the difference is little. So still, this is often a case when it comes to reviewing, the GTO strategy, that if our opponent is still fairly aggressive in each case, and he is like well protected, we'll have room for both for check jamming and for jamming. So we shouldn't really be afraid with that. Like, again, adjusting to particular opponent, if he has some tendency, if we notice something, would be more interesting. However, yeah, let's look at like how the range is built when it comes to these overbets, right? We've got some straights. This probably would be our main value range. We've got some Jack 6, Jack 5, Queen 4, Jack 5, Jack 6, Queen 4, right? Offsuited combos most frequent, so we should look at them. 5, 6, 5, 6, Jack 6. Yeah, so basically, as you can see, top 2 from the turn. So basically, besides like Queen 4, we prefer picking these overbet sizings rather with I mean, we prefer, like, GTO recommends picking the big sizings rather with hands that do not block a queen.
Yeah.
Right.
And also it checks most 2 pairs that do not block a queen, aside from Queen 4. You see Jack 4, 6 4, 5 4, 5 4, 6 4. These are all checks, because it's more likely that the queen hit your opponent and you have check raising opportunity, most likely.
Yeah, and also, like, having a 4 makes our opponent has less river checkbacks, so his range is more. I mean, it has less short and value hands, right? So basically, he has more. Remember, this is like delay opportunity for our opponent, so his value betting range will be fairly wide, as there are for sure lots of high cards in his range, so he can easily value bet a 5 or a 6. That's why having a 4 for us means that he has more 5s or 6.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is our value range. Makes sense, right? Top pairs, we are just sticking to pot size bets. Second pair to 1 BBs. Pretty classy. I mean, yeah, classic sizing depends on our hand strength. Yeah, sorry, like with the third pair 1 BB, so half pot. With the second pair 3/4. With top pair pot size bet. Cool. With weak pairs mainly check, and probably like half of them check calling, half not. And
we have... okay. Yeah, I was going to say about which weak pairs will go for the check raise, but we're going to check that in a bit. So
yeah,
no hurry.
So yeah, let's see what bluffs we could use as a big sizing bet. Frequently, that's the thing that we could use like all sorts of sizings, and like the bluff combos are mainly used just for the sake of frequencies, right? For balancing the range, to have some bluffs in this and that sizing. But it's for sure worth checking like which combos are preferred for using bigger sizings. And as you can see, these are like 7 deuce, which blocks 7-8, blocks deuce 3, 8-3. This for the same reason.
So combos with 2 blockers for the possible straights, like the ones that block most straights, basically. And it's also because of the fact probably that if our opponent had initially some of those cards like 7s or deuces, 3s, and whatever, usually these cards are either going for delay bet, or they do see bet on earlier street. So it's a combo that you can definitely use as an oversized bluff, especially that there was no c-bet so far. So your opponent's top range that can call you on the river is rather queen or almost nothing.
Yeah. Cool. So kind of logically, right, to pick different sizings. And while it's kind of logical to pick different sizings when it comes to our air cards, the question arises how to balance the low sizing when it comes to facing a raise, because like small bets like these half pot bets would be the most frequent. So basically, one thing that I would put second thought on is simply what is actually our value range after we bet the river 1 BB, and face the raise, because we saw that we don't have like none of these straights, right, in 1BB bet, since we don't have them in our range. When it comes to 1BB, so the light blue color is 1BB, right? We have some queens, we have this Jack 5, we've got Jack 6, and basically 5-6, right? So this is split between betting 1BB and just jamming. Very interesting, right? So simply we block 2 pairs, we just bet 1BB or we jump.
We have some top pairs as well, I think.
Yeah, and we have some top pair. I mean, top pairs are mainly pot size bet or 3/4, right? So there are not many top pairs. As you can see, looking at the whole frequency, it's like very, yeah. Second pair the same. So most likely, as you can see, the way to protect our range versus a race is simply to prepare some of the 2 pairs that we decided not to check. So basically those that do not block bottom pair, and those that that are simply built with these medium cards.
And it's also interesting that 4x 2 pairs are not that frequent in this, right? Because 4x would be usually one of the pair plus draw type of hands that's most frequently turned into a raised bluff against a probe. So from that perspective, probably this is because 5x and 6x 2 pair combos are the one that use this half pot more frequently than the others.
Might be, yeah. Let's check it out. So basically, this is what we want to investigate, right? Plus minus, we see what's going on when it comes to our range, like with what hands we bet 1BB, with what hand we bet bigger sizing. So let's see. We bet 1BB. We'll for sure face a raise from time to time. And obviously, we could say like, oh, it's not too frequent for sure. But when it happens, it's like the easiest way to make a mistake. And I believe that these spots when we face a raise are pretty important to master. So let's see how our opponent, like with what hands he actually raises, right? So raise to 3BB is like light blue. So let's take a closer look at all the combos. Starting with air cards, as you can see, none of the air cards are actually raising, right? Here, sorry, nothing, right? So king highs, right? We've got some weakers like king deuce, king 3. So these block some straights. King 7 with very little frequency as it blocks straight as well. Let's see aces.
King 7 was actually calling, I think.
Here, yeah, it's like calling, but the raise is also like 0.75.
Yeah.
Right? It's like very, very rare. So like we need to check like what's the most frequent bluffing range. Yeah. And this is exactly what you said, right? There are some bluffs with 8-4, 7-4,
4-3
so basically,
yeah.
Yes. So basically hands that at the same time block 2 pairs and they block some straights, right?
Yeah, this is because 5 and 6 usually have easier time just calling the probe, while 4 is like, I'm probably gonna lose a bunch of the time, but if I also have a straight blocker and 2-pair blocker, is usually the most preferred one by GTO solver. So yeah, this is why I think 2 pairs without a 4 was the most frequent medium size, so that they can call these bluffs more frequently and actually give them space to happen, right?
Yeah. So basically, we can see that the main bluffing range are simply 4s. So probably we don't bet on 4s on the river, so we won't have a problem to mind the kicker that to mind the fact that we shouldn't rebluff the river with a 4. But looks like what's important for us on one hand is that our opponent actually bluffs with when he has 8 and 7. So my question is, like, do we want to rebluff when we have this 8, 7, or 3, while in fact, we are blocking our opponent's bluffing combos? So yeah, we'll check it out in a second, right? So basically, this is these are the combos to pick. And also, this is, in my opinion, important that the difference between like calling, folding, and raising is usually like indifferent. So I wouldn't really go into details here when it comes to picking the frequency. I would rather, it's still pretty rare spot, so I would do it depends on my opponent, look at his general tendency, and then like try to bluff him a few times, see if his calling range is how far it is from the optimal strategy. So like first I would test and go for like a feeling frequency, depends on his river strategy, which is the most important, and I should adjust my strategy based on that.
But obviously, in order to adjust, it's very nice for all of you to be familiar with the base from which you do adjustment, as you can't adjust from nothing. You need a base.
Yeah, for sure. This is the like, even though this is the thing, even though the EV of particular move is like very close, the thing is that it generally shows very well if you want to bluff, when, like, with what hands to bluff, what combos to pick, right? That this is not that bad to actually raise the bottom pair with the straight blocker. So right, so this is what happened. Our opponent raises to 3x, and here's what's pretty interesting to me. So I want to see like what are our like rebluffing combos, right? So starting with nothing, there are no hands.
What's the difference what's the difference for raising a hand like 9-3 here? If you can go to nothing.
So basically, here call like fold is 0, re-raise is like minus 0.4 blinds on the river is actually not that big, especially that right now. I mean, okay, the pot is 6 blinds. So
and the interesting thing now, guys, is to check. Okay, it's -4, but if our opponent is calling in a correct way, because later when we check also what he calls against this rebluff, if you're playing against an opponent that you perceive as on the tight side, and you don't think like he can call your, let's say, re-raise with a jack there, then this bluff actually can make sense sometimes. So it's all obviously something that can be perceived in a different way.
Yeah,
interesting to see the calling range.
Yeah, because that's the thing, like check it out, that here, in order to be balanced, our opponent needs to raise and call our river jam on the river. And now a few things are important. First of all, hand like jack deuce, he needs to check the flop, he needs to check the turn, then he needs to raise the river, and then he needs to call versus the river jam. The same with the queen 4 sounds reasonable. Queen 6, probably lots of people would just delay that on the turn. Like for sure, very interesting are hands like 6-4 offsuited, because they are like pretty frequent when it comes to the combinations. The same for ace queen and king queen. I mean, probably these are more frequently like checked flop turn and raise the river for sure. The question is like, would our opponent actually call that hand versus the re-raise? So, you know, if at some point we assume that, hey, our opponent wouldn't actually raise the river with jack deuce, or he wouldn't like call the re-raise on the river with king queen or ace queen, where his river raising range like consists of these hands, most likely our rebluff on the river like gets higher EV, right? So I believe it's worth putting pressure on players to see how they react, and if they are actually, you know, raise calling properly.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Yeah, so so
going back maybe to what hands do we actually bluff there, see what is the GTO recommended.
Yeah, exactly. What combos to bluff, right? What combos to go all in.
I see some ace highs, but no, it's...
Let's start from the top, right? So we had some second pairs. The raise is the green, right?
Yeah.
So basically green ones. So as you can see, we're thin value betting a jack, like jack 7. This is very interesting. Where call in jam EV would be very close. So simply we either like call because we are ahead of some bluffs, like a 4 that turned into a bluff, or we use the hand as a bluff because simply we also block straight, we block 2 pairs. That's very interesting.
It's very interesting and very unintuitive, I would say. I don't think many people would turn jack 7 into a bluff. Like I would understand 6-7, let's say, but jack 7, I think almost nobody does that. Not in spins, maybe in MTT. I mean, it's deeper, so on deeper stacks it's harder to call you. and this combo would have higher impact. While here, it's definitely not something that I feel intuitive, but it's interesting, definitely interesting thing to see.
Yeah, for sure. For sure,
it's very
there are
low weight though.
Lots of simply pair plus draw blockers, right? So still, like we will go with 6-8, we go with 6-7, and in many cases, as you can see, like call, we're calling rarely. It's like close to zero. Like re-raise all in is like also close to zero. But I think the reference point that these hands are actually pretty good candidates to bluff. I think this is pretty interesting, and still that you can turn your pair into a bluff, right? Queen deuce.
Yeah, and pay attention, hands, guys. Pay attention also to the weights of the hands that you see. Jack 7 bet jump turn into a bluff, but this is a very low weight on that hand. It's like almost doesn't happen.
Yeah, this is also why it's worth putting the absolute absolute number, because absolute way of showing these graphics, because simply we don't, I mean, it's cool to do it to see like what frequency, I mean, to see the frequency is better, but the reality is if we don't see it, it means that we shouldn't even appear with this hand at the first place. So definitely, and the same looking for offsuited combos as they are the most frequent. So for sure, our main candidate that we'll have to bluff will be just 8-6, right? That will appear with, and that we should simply bluff with. Even though this is also pretty fun and frequently that, you know, our raising all-in EV is like just slightly lower than calling. We need to add some bluffs because we'll have value, so we want to add some bluffs here to simply not be exploited by overfold from our opponent. Because if we don't jam the river with don't 3-bet jump the river with 8-6, it will simply mean that most likely our opponent would be raise folding these hands like king, queen, ace, queen that we were saying, right? Because he believes that we'll not be able to jump the river.
Yeah, first he has to prove to us that he can call correctly, but in order to do that, we have to put him to the test, right? So play correct frequencies as well.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah, so 8-6, this is definitely something to remember, right? So we've got this thin value bet that we go with 1 BB. And again, to recall, what were the value combos that we were 3-betting the river? These were mainly two pairs, right? No, straights we were overbetting. We're overbetting on the river.
Yeah, but
just mainly,
we have some, I guess, 7-3,
mainly jamming.
7.
Like, yeah, if you look at the frequencies, oh shit, sorry. If you look at the frequencies here, it's also like the thing that on which we should focus. These are definitely two pairs. These are definitely two pairs that we have the most frequently after we bet 1 BB, because that was also the reason, because, you know, we block with two pairs, we block pairs. So betting 1 BB has to induce and has to thin value bet, right? We bet 1 BB with Jack Queen 5 or Jack 5 because we want to squeeze the value from F4. We want to squeeze the value from, you know, some weak kickers, maybe from high cards and so on. So so this is the thing. However, obviously it gets a bit of complicated, and this is like kind of a rock, paper, scissors play with our opponents. Like a hand like 5-6 or 6-4, simply re-raising all in has way higher EV when you look at it. But this is mainly because we saw that our opponent raises and calls the all in with ace queen. So this is something that we need to monitor, right? I believe at the beginning is worth playing close to that. So simply use 6-8 as a bluff and use 6-4 as a thin value river jam. I mean, we could call it a thin value because our opponent needs to go with needs to call with ace queen. That we don't know if he does that. So it's worth basically following both, and simply if our opponent calls with ace queen, then, you know, we know that he is capable of doing that. And now his frequencies of river calls were like 50-50. So now we can balance, like, depends on his feather actions and his statistics. We could either add the full combo of 8-6 offsuited as a river bluff, or we could like cut it at all if he calls too frequently with ace queen, right? Because remember, when someone goes, when someone deviates a lot from the optimal strategy, it means that we could adjust to him, and then we could make more extreme adjustments that you could, for example, calculate in PioSolver. or simply think of the potential adjustments just in a logical way, or consult with your coach, consult with us. Like our students can simply consult these adjustments with our coaches or with them. So so this is pretty important. That's worth following. It's definitely worth following at the beginning, but then simply adjusting to our opponent depends on his decisions. Simply knowing what's the reference point, what you should expect from your opponent, and when you see that something is unexpected from him, or you do not see the expected line, you could change the strategy a bit. Especially to these combos that are described as a frequency, right? Like 4-5. This means that most likely the difference between call and raise would be like slight. So basically, these are like first combos to make as adjustments. Yep. So basically, if you're struggling with the base, if you are not sure on how to adjust, or maybe you feel like a bit overwhelmed, feel free to join our Smart Spin Discord channel. Feel free, if you are also interested in staking and coaching, to jump into our team. We are basing our strategy on the game theory, but as people, like lots of recreational players don't play optimally in many spots, and we know exactly where. It's just worth starting from the base, but obviously making some kind of adjustment to instantly change our strategy, as some of the plays will be like less expected than others. So if you lack of the mate strategy, yep, just jump in, visit our site and contact us. Anything to add to this hand?
To this hand, I don't think so. I was rather also thinking just that something that we always have to mind, that even if sometimes we see something that differs from, let's say, something that we expected, it doesn't always make it bad. Every hand develops as a tree, so there are obviously way different ways to go to the river. So these hands that you see from your opponent, these showdowns, that they are always going to be different. This is why you also care how things got to the river. There, if you go through GTO solver, you'll see different frequencies of c-bet on the flop, on the turn, raises, and so on. So the factors that you look for so that you can solve a hand real life when you play, this is definitely something that we can help you here. How to make this process easier, how to be more confident in your decision making while playing without constantly needing the reassurance. This is a good base that this solver can give you. This base, we at SmartSpin can always also help you develop your exploitative approach and help you take better decisions at the tables. So feel free to join, feel free to improve with this and reach your desired poker goals. That's it from me.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah. Exactly. And still, like, this is very nice start to see what's going on, what combos could be fine to do this or that. But then obviously the next step would be either Pio solver, but obviously it demands time, it demands knowledge. It's very easy to make mistakes there. That would change the results drastically, because when it comes to poker, and especially solvers, it's not about the answers, it's about asking correct questions. And obviously this demands lots of time, demands lots of knowledge, and lots of failures that you need to make to understand how these tools work. So if you want to save some time, we've got Jack, who is like pro Pio solver user every day, 24/7.
Yeah.
Pio solving, no, obviously. Only after sessions. Yeah, cool. So yeah, pretty nice, pretty interesting hand. So yeah, as a summary, what we said, these hands like Deuce-7, 3-8, 3-7. 3-7 is a straight, but Deuce-7, 3-8, hands that block two straights sounds pretty nice to jump the river, right? To instantly jump the straights. hands that we should pick as a small bet and then consider to jam are rather 2 pairs.
Don't block the 4, the bottom pair. These are the best.
Exactly. With the 2 pairs that don't block 2 pairs, we prefer checking. The 2 pairs that block a 4, we prefer checking. And then when we face a raise, it's worth considering turning hands into a bluff that specifically block both 2 pairs and straight, right? So pretty interesting hand. Okay, thank you again, guys, for watching. Enjoy the base, and we are in touch.
See ya.
Bye-bye.